Hi everyone, this is James Song here. We're doing another listening passage today. We're doing a conversation passage, so hopefully it will be a little shorter and easier than the other lecture passages. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right into it. So I'll play the passage and I'll start by writing notes.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Professor Jennings, I hope I'm not interrupting, but you wanted to see me?
Oh, hello, Suzanne. Yes, come right in. How are you doing?
All right.
Well, good. The reason I wanted to talk to you was that while you were presenting your linguistics project in class the other day, well, I was thinking you're a perfect candidate for the Dean's Undergraduate Research Fund.
Professor, I'm not really sure what the, Dean's...
Undergraduate Research Fund is? It is a mouthful, I suppose. Okay, here's the thing. Every year, the school has a pool of money to fund a number of research projects of undergraduate students because, as you can imagine, in-depth research often requires monetary support.
I would like to expand on my research.
Good. First, a panel of professors reviews the applications for the grant, and then they decide on which research projects should be funded. The allotted money can be used for travel expenses, to attend a conference, for example, or for things like supplies, research equipment, resources that are necessary to conduct the research.
I see.
Right. And I think you should apply for this grant. Your project is definitely eligible, and you could expand it if you had the necessary resources. So, does it sound like something you'd be interested in?
Oh, yeah, it sounds great. I thought the topic I worked on was really interesting, and it's certainly relevant to my linguistics major. I assume it would also look good when I try to get into graduate school. But how do I apply for the grant?
It's pretty straightforward. A brief description of your proposed project and an estimated budget, how much you'd need to spend and what you intend to spend it on. Also, a glowing letter of recommendation from a linguistics professor wouldn't hurt, which I'd be more than happy to write up for you.
Okay, cool. I'm pretty clear on how to carry out my project, but I'm not sure where I can find more information on the subject.
Well, I've already thought of that. There's this private library at a university in Boston. By the way, because I graduated from that school, I can get you access to it, no problem. You see, the library houses lots of unpublished documents that are relevant to your topic.
So I could put that in the application for the grant, that I plan on using material from that library for my research, and figure a trip to Boston into my budget?
Exactly. I really think, judging from your work in class and the relevance and clarity of this project, you'd really have a good chance of getting the funding.
Okay, I'll definitely apply then.
Well, the sooner the better. It's due in a few weeks. Good luck, and I'll get that letter written up right away.
Okay, so how much did you get that? I hope you got it all, or at least most of it, most of them. All right, so let's go through. So left side is student and right side is the lecturer, professor. And, you cannot write everything down, okay? So sometimes if the answer of the question is enough, I would just write the answer only, or, some parts would be skipped if I think I can remember because I understand the passage really well, then I wouldn't bother write it down. And really minor details also, I wouldn't write it down, okay? So students come to the professor but says, did you want to see me? I wrote this down because it's important whether students approach the professor by students' will, or although students come to the professor's office, some situations, the students are asked to come by the professor. So initiator of this conversation is professor, although student came to the professor's office, right? So I wanted to make this clear. So professor wanted to see this female student. So female students came, right? And professor basically say, I think you're perfect candidate for Dean's undergrad research fund. And say what? And professor explains, right? The school every year have some money to fund the research project for undergraduate student because in-depth research need monetary support. Okay, monetary means money. So yeah, the students say, yeah, I want to expand my research if possible. Why not, right? So professor explains, professors, panel of professors, not this professors, number of lecturers, review the application and they choose which project to fund, to give money for travel expenses, attending conferences, supplies, any kind of money that is necessary for research project, they will give money for, right? And, professor really strongly believe that the student should apply, okay, to this research fund that is available for undergraduate students, yeah? And, professor says the project is eligible, so she should apply, and this will help her expand her research, right? And she says yes, basically accepting, I will apply. So yeah, there's some reasons for that. She thought the topic was interesting, and she believes it's relevant to her major. And also, getting this funding would look good on her graduate application. So she is already thinking about going to grad school to maybe master's degree after graduating her undergraduate degree, which is a bachelor degree. So yeah, so she is attracted to this opportunity for these 3 reasons. And she asked how to apply. And I didn't bother writing it down because I would remember. So professor explains to her, you need to give brief description of your research. So I guess you need to write that down in your application. And budget, money, how much and where to spend it. Okay, how much money she needs and on what she will spend it on. And the professor is really keen, right? Really likes these students and want this student to apply for this funding, right? Because professor, without students even asking for it, professor volunteers that he will write a recommendation letter for her in the application process, okay? So this is how to apply. And she says she knows what to do, but kind of she doesn't know where to find information to do in-depth research. And professor already thought of this, how thoughtful this teacher is. He says there is a private library in Boston, and because he graduated from there, so he can give her access to that library. So I guess they are not in Boston. It's a bit far away, but she can go there and professor can give her the access to get into the library. And professor says there are a lot of relevant information to her topic of research, even some unpublished work, right? So a lot of information there for her. So that's where to find the information for her. This private library that he knows, that professor knows, in Boston, right? So students kind of getting the purpose of this. So, students ask a question, but that's a rhetorical question, asking questions to confirm whether she understood, right? So student says, so maybe I should, write the trip to Boston, possibly, and plan to go to this library in Boston into her application to get funding, because, she would need money to travel to Boston. And if you actually go up a little bit, professor mentioned this funding can be used, for example, travel expenses, attending conferences or supplies, or any necessary money, funding to conduct the research, right? So later on, we just covered now that, she's saying, oh, so if I need to go to Boston, maybe I can apply to this research fund, and if I get it, then they can cover me. They can, the money that I receive can be used to pay for her travel expenses to Boston for her research, to visit this library in Boston. Okay. Yeah. And professor, once again, probably says it for the third time. He thinks she has good chance to get this funding. And she'll say, she says she'll apply. And, professor reminds her to apply it pretty soon because it's due in a few weeks. And he says he will start writing recommendation letter. So yeah, what a great mentor, what a great professor, trying to give more opportunities to his student. Okay, so let's look at the questions. Okay, why does the professor want to talk to the students? So it says here, right? The professor wants to let her know there is a thing called Dean's undergrad research funding available, and the professor wants this student to apply for this funding, right? That's the reason why professor asked her to see him, right? So let's look at answer choices. A, to discuss her application to graduate school. Nope, it's nothing to do with graduate school. She wants to go someday, maybe, right? Yeah. B, to discuss a possible internship. It's not an internship. Try to let her know about the research fund and ask her to apply for it, right? C, to encourage her to increase the scope of a research project. Yeah, maybe, in a roundabout way, because if you want to expand your research, you need some money, funding, so that you need to apply to this research fund to get the money, get the funding to expand her research, right? So let's have a look, right? School gives funding for the research, and she says, I want to expand. Professor basically say, do you want to expand? Because if you want to expand your research, you need some monetary support if you want to expand it, right? So, see, is a little bit broad and general, but C looks pretty good as an answer, right? As the answer. Let's check D. Let's check D. Okay, let's check D. D, to suggest some changes to improve our research project. No. So at first sight, C looks a little bit different from letting her know about the research fund and ask her to apply for it. But in essence, C is exactly that, because in order to expand the research, Professor believes she needs to apply to this research fund because he believes she can get it. Okay, so the answer is C. Question 18, C. Okay, question 19. According to the professor, what information should be included in student's application? So this is how school picks the right candidate. And she asks how to apply. And this, as I explained, was how to apply, the process of student's application. She needs to give brief description of the research and apply by putting in the budget, how much money, and on what and where, okay, on what she's going to spend it on, and maybe a recommendation letter by the professor, okay? All right, so let's solve this question. What information should be included in student's application to apply for this funding? The amount of money she will need for a project, yeah. It's right here. And yeah, budget. And it says how much, right? B, the amount of time she'll need to complete a project, not mentioned. Summary of research already conducted on the topic. Already? Like already is already same as brief description of the research project? No. Brief description could be future, based on future driven. Okay, so I want to do this research. Please help me by giving me some money. Okay, but C is saying summary of research already conducted. So C is saying if you chose C, you basically have chosen that saying this is the research I have done already. But there's no information here that you need to give that out. Okay, so not mentioned. The reasons why she chose that particular topic, not mentioned. Okay. Description means just, explaining what the research is. So just by looking at this, right, we don't know whether they were asking for the reasons because it just says brief description. So you just need to describe what the research is, right? And this is not automatically the reasons, right? So answer is A. Question 19, A. Okay, let's continue. Question 20. Why does the professor mention a university in Boston? Because he graduated from that university, so he can give access to this private library in Boston that Professor thinks she can use to get relevant information, okay? All right, so Professor graduated from this university so that Professor can give student an access to that library that Professor thinks she needs to go to get information. Okay, so that's in note-taking here, right? I graduated from that university, so I can give you access to that library, no problems, this part. He used to be a professor, no, graduated, so student. He thinks the student may find useful material there. Maybe. Because he graduated there, so he can give her the access. And why he thinks she should go there? Because in that library, he thinks she can get a lot of relevant information on her topic. So all of this, right? So B may be right. But let's check whether C or D is a better answer, more comprehensive answer, or actually B is the answer. Let's find out. He has plans to visit university soon. Nope. D, he thinks the student should attend the conference there. So, you know, ACD, awful answers, right? All off topic or irrelevant, all completely wrong. So the answer comes from this part of the note taking, right? So answer is B. So question 20, B. Question 21. What does the professor say? So what does he say? He will do for the student, write a recommendation letter. Okay. So he just volunteers, ever before or without student asking for one. Okay. Professor volunteers, recommendation by a linguistic professor, who is him, wouldn't hurt, right? So that's question 21. All right, A, helper determine details for research budget. Not mentioned. A sister with graduate school inquiry, irrelevant. Talk to her about ways to expanding her project. Yeah, maybe, but it's not something that he says he will do for her. Okay, it's different talking about it opposed to, yeah, this is what I'll do for you. I will do this for you. That is, write a recommendation letter. Okay, so answer is D. Question 21, D. Okay, last question of this conversation listening passage. Question 22. Why does the professor say this? So we need to listen to the audio file. Let's go.
Why does the professor say this?
It is a mouthful, I suppose.
Yeah, it goes way back in the beginning. He says, I think you're a perfect candidate for Dean's undergraduate research fund. And the student says, what? Like, students doesn't even get it. Like, what? Sorry, what did you say? What are you talking about? Okay. And professor says, yeah, it's a mouthful, I guess. I don't usually do this, but let's listen to it again, because I'll discuss, even if you don't catch it here when it was played, just by listening to the question here, let's discuss how to get to the right answer, okay?
Why does the professor say this?
It is a mouthful, I suppose.
So let's assume that you didn't connect it to this part, okay? Just by listening, it is mouthful, I suppose, means it's hard to pronounce, right? It's mouthful, you know, difficult to say, okay, or long, or really difficult to pronounce physically, technically, right? So just based on that, we can still get to the right answer. That's what I wanted to show you. If you got to where it was said in the passage because your listening is so good, or when you're doing note-taking, you're sharp and you remember, that's great. But the purpose of this question is you should still be able to get the right answer by just listening to that sentence and understanding that sentence to get to the right answer, right? It's a mouthful, I suppose. So it's, you know, very long or difficult to say, pronounce. He thinks the fund is rather limited. Nope. I mean, mouthful. You know, he agrees that fund's name is rather long or difficult to pronounce, or yeah, exactly, right? C, he thinks the student needs help with her project. Huh? In what way? Not answering the question, so broad. It's a mouthful, I suppose. Okay, so mouthful, need what kind of help when it's mouthful to say? Totally irrelevant answer. D, he's surprised that the student is not familiar with the fund. Wrong meaning, okay? It's mouthful, I suppose. If you chose D, basically you're saying, professor's saying like, I can't believe you haven't heard of this fund before. You should know, you should be aware of this fund, but you're not? Really? That's D, right? So it has nothing to do with something that is mouthful, because it's very literal, it's very technical, you know, it's very long or something difficult to say. So D is wrong. So clearly, question 22, answer is B. So another conversational passage done. Question 22, the answer is B.